double portion, and for those of you who are not aware, there are a number of times during the year where we're going to have two parashiot in the same week. This happens, for those of you who don't know, because there's not enough weeks. The Torah is divided into 54 parts, although, like in everything, there's some rabbinic debate on that point. But there's not enough weeks on the lunar calendar that we're keeping, including the weeks when we're going to read a special portion for a holy day. So there's a number of weeks every year we're going to have two portions in the same week. This is one of those weeks, and we're looking at Matot and Masei. Matot referring to tribes, and Masei being the journeys. So we're talking about some of the things happening to the tribes and the journeys that they were on to get where they are right now, which is where they're about to enter the land. We open with an instruction that God gives to Moses to give to the heads of the tribes about keeping vows, and that God takes vows very seriously. It says that whatever comes from your mouth, you must do. It does say that vows can be annulled if someone has the authority. Examples are given are a woman living in her father's household, and if her father hears her make a vow to herself and says, probably can't keep that, I advise you don't do that, that vow can be annulled. Or the other example is a woman in her husband's household, where her husband hears a vow she makes and advises her, that's probably not going to work out, we shouldn't be doing that. I don't believe that means that men are never absolved from vows either. My wife can hear me make all sorts of dumb promises to myself all the time and remind me that that's probably not a good idea. But the point here is that God takes vows very seriously, and unless at the moment you make a vow, it is understood that you have not made that vow in earnest, or that someone hears this promise and advises you against it. If you make a vow to yourself, specifically a vow to God, you're expected to keep it. And God is very clear on this point. After this point, God instructs Moses to bring an army out from the children of Israel, 1,000 from each tribe, and they're going to go and they're going to destroy the people of Midian, because the people of Midian were involved in leading Israel astray. And they're supposed to get rid of all the men, and they're supposed to get rid of all the women who were involved in this deceit and betrayal, and they're supposed to leave the young women and the children alive and then take all their stuff. And they do that, and there's some argument as to which things are you supposed to keep and not supposed to keep. And there's instructions given here that the rabbis will then later explain is how we know that you're supposed to bury your spoons in the ground if they're not kosher enough. There's instructions given on what do you do with the things these people had that are not clean to you. You have to do something to make them clean for you. And the rabbis will use this portion to then justify that if you accidentally use your milk spoon for some meat, you have to boil it and then bury it in the ground. So Moses gives the instructions about this purification process, and then we're told how much stuff did we get from Midianites, which is a lot of stuff. 675,000 sheep, 72,000 heads of cattle, 61,000 donkeys, and 32,000 human captives, which is a lot of stuff. And this stuff is divided into equal parts among the tribes, and each tribe takes their percentage. However, like in all things, some portion of this stuff is given to God. A portion of the money goes to the Levites and stays in the temple. A portion of all the spoils goes to Levites. They don't fight in the wars, and they get their share of it anyway because they belong to God and they have to do God's work, and they need stuff for that too. After this, we are told that people are getting ready to go into the land. However, the sons of Reuben and the sons of Gad say, we don't want to go in, we want to put our houses here instead, on the eastern side of the Jordan. And Moses gets rather frustrated at this, because God promised you the land on the west side of the Jordan, and you're going to throw everything off because you're supposed to help us. It's not allowed for you to stay here and not help us claim the inheritance that God promised us. You have to come help us. And they agree, give us the land here because it's really good for our cows and our sheep and our cattle, and we will come fight and help you reclaim your inheritance, and then we'll come back and we'll settle here. So these two tribes leave their tents and their wives and their children on this side, the east side of the Jordan, and promise that they will be part of reclaiming the rest of the land. we are given a recount at this point of all the places that Israel stopped on its way here. When we said we wandered in the desert, we weren't joking. There were 42 different places we stopped, according to the rabbis and according to Scripture, over the course of 40 years. We were wandering around in the desert for a long time, and we went all over the place, and this is all recounted for us here. At this point, after talking about where we've been, God talks about where we're going. He gives us a description of what are the boundaries of the land that he has promised. Where does it end on the north and the south? Where do the lines draw at the Jordan River? And so on. And he describes which pieces of the land belong to which tribes, and then he explains that because the tribe of Levi does not have its own land, the tribe of Levi were going to build cities for them. Including the cities we build for the tribe of Levi so that they have somewhere to live, because they need to do the work of God and they can't work the fields and manage their own land. They need some space to live. On top of that, 6 of these cities are going to be cities of refuge, so that if someone is convicted of manslaughter and they're being chased by someone's family for a crime that they committed but not intentionally, they have somewhere to go. They have a safe place to run to. God provides. There's going to be 6 cities, 3 on each side of the Jordan, so that these people have a place to go and seek refuge, but they can't leave. If you have committed this mortal crime and you are on the run and you go to these cities, you must stay there. You can't leave. As soon as you leave, you are subject to the justice of vengeance from the families you have wronged. And finally, we are going to see a small legal matter where the 5 daughters in the tribe of Manasseh, whose father had no sons, are concerned that they won't get any land as it's being distributed. And in fact, the other men of their tribe are also concerned that if these women marry into other households, there will be less land apportioned to our house than is supposed to be, because these women will marry into someone else's house and will lose that land to those houses. So it's agreed that these women are supposed to marry a man from their own tribe. That way the land gets divided evenly as God had specified before. And I'm going to be chanting from the first 5 verses. We're starting in Numbers 30, and I'll be chanting 2 through 6, where it talks about the vows. Because I wanted to think about what does this portion of Scripture tell us about the character of God. It tells us a lot of things about where the Israelites came from, where they're going. So we look at some legal matters. But what does this tell us about the character of God? Well, it tells us that he is a God that keeps promises. He has promised to bring the children into the land, and here we are. We're about to go into the land. Here's the land I'm going to give you. Here's what it's going to look like. Here's what you should do with it. We're reminded that when you get into the land, this is your land, and there's some other people here and stuff here, and you need to get rid of that. And I found it very amusing. The comment is, you need to get rid of the people that live here, because if you don't, they will be a thorn in your side for the rest of history. They'll be a pain in the neck. Interestingly, there is a amount of cohabitation with another nation in the land of Israel at this time, and it is kind of a pain in the neck. So God has a different solution for how the land is supposed to be shared and who's supposed to live in it and in what capacity. But we can remember that God made a promise. He promised this land to his people, and he brought them there. And the other thing this tells us is God expects us to keep our promises. God keeps his, and so we have to keep up our end of the bargain. So we should think about what promises have we made, what have we sworn never to do again, what have we promised God that we will do. If you just give me this, I promise I'll never do that again. Have we been keeping those promises? These vows we've made to God, are we keeping those true to ourselves and true to God?